Imagine you wake up tomorrow and nothing dramatic happens. No headlines, no crisis. Yet the supply chains that move your daily life quietly hum, barely noticed. The factory that makes the parts for your phone slows down. Machines hum instead of roar. People move, but not fast enough. The world feels small, delayed. The ship carrying those parts leaves port late. Shipping containers sway. Cranes lift slowly. Global trade doesn't crash. It just waits. Timing is power. Prices rise quietly. You don't see headlines. Jobs don't disappear, they just stop growing. The economy moves silently, but the impact is real. This is how power works in the modern economy. Not through force, through production, trade, and timing. China didn't become central by accident. It became unavoidable. To understand China today, you don't start with politics. You start with factories, exports, and the system that keeps the world moving. The machinery is quiet. The impact is global. China's economic story began with necessity. Leaders realized stability required jobs, and jobs depended on production. Factories became the solution, not ideology, but survival itself. Factories were scalable, labor abundant, and the world demanded cheap goods. China prioritized assembly over innovation, entering global trade with speed and precision to survive. Cities transformed around industrial zones. Families organized around factory wages. Life and time were measured by production targets. Manufacturing became a national operating system. The goal was momentum, not branding. Produce, export, repeat. Each shipment generated foreign currency, experience, and leverage. China's strategy was entering the system at any cost. China's industrial choice rewired the country. Labor, infrastructure, and production networks became the backbone of economic growth. Entry into global markets reshaped national priorities forever. The country didn't compete with advanced economies yet. It inserted itself into global trade. Entry, experience, and momentum mattered more than aesthetics or recognition. China leaned into its greatest advantage, scale. Massive labor pools allowed factories to grow beyond competitors. Volume, not efficiency, initially drove dominance, reshaping production into a systemic force. Costs fell because scale crushed margins. Entire supply chains relocated to stay close to factories. Ports expanded, logistics hardened, and speed became a defining systemic feature of Chinese production. Policy, land use, and infrastructure aligned behind output. Manufacturing stopped being a sector, it became an ecosystem. Cities and logistics grew around production, and the world began adjusting to Chinese scale. Brands designed products for China's capacity. Timelines bent around factory output. Scale produced learning. Learning created efficiency. Efficiency created dominance. Production floors became classrooms of skill and experience. Tools improved, skills accumulated, standards rose. Low-end assembly quietly climbed the value chain. Each production cycle deepened global dependence on Chinese factories, reshaping business models worldwide. The world didn't just buy Chinese goods anymore, it built businesses on them. China's scale became strategic leverage, embedding itself into global production and corporate timelines permanently. Manufacturing alone did not create power. Trade did. China treated exports as strategy, turning every shipment into a relationship that quietly tied foreign economies to Chinese production. Trade surpluses funded infrastructure. Infrastructure reinforced manufacturing. Ports, railways, and highways expanded together, forming a self-reinforcing loop that tightened China's role inside global commerce. China pushed outward while others consumed inward. Growth depended on external demand, transforming trade policy into strategy, not ideology, carefully shaped to protect and expand export momentum. Exchange rates were managed. Logistics subsidized. Barriers selectively adjusted. This wasn't free trade romanticism, but calculated integration designed to embed China deep inside global economic flows. Countries didn't just import from China, they planned around it. Supply chains stretched long, efficient yet fragile, reshaping global business models without confrontation or political theater. But dependence cut both ways. As exports surged, exposure grew. Global demand cycles began shaping domestic stability, quietly raising the stakes of China's trade-centered growth model. To sustain export dominance, China chose trade-offs others avoided. Speed mattered more than comfort. Growth came first, shaping a system optimized for output, not ease. Labor protections stayed lighter. Margins stayed thinner. This wasn't cruelty, but prioritization, using employment itself to manage social pressure while keeping factories competitive globally. Urbanization accelerated. Millions left rural security for factory opportunity, trading stability for momentum as cities expanded around industrial zones and production schedules. Manufacturing delivered resilience and tension together. Growth stayed steady, but balance vanished. Any slowdown now threatened jobs, confidence, and the system's internal stability. Trade became political insurance. As long as factories ran, stability held. Output wasn't just economic success anymore. It was systemic reassurance. But efficiency has limits. Costs rise. Markets shift. Dominance now demands coordination, subsidies, and constant pressure to keep the machine moving. By the time China mastered manufacturing and trade, scale was unmatched. But growth now depended on exports, foreign demand, and the stability of global markets. Factories needed buyers abroad. Ports needed volume. Employment needed momentum. Power grew outward, but stability increasingly relied on forces beyond domestic control. This created strength and exposure together. Trade tensions weren't abstract politics. Every tariff echoed through production lines and tested national confidence directly. The system was strong but tightly wound. Success reduced flexibility. Stability now required anticipation, not reaction, in a constantly shifting global environment. Managing production alone was no longer enough. Trade flows, dependencies, and leverage became strategic tools essential to protecting growth and employment. Manufacturing built the engine. Trade scaled it. But participation-based power is fragile. To secure growth, China needed influence beyond factories, over routes, partners, and rules. Once participation proved insufficient, strategy replaced patience, as China recognized that scale, without control, left factories exposed to disruptions decided far beyond its borders globally. Manufacturing remained central, but attention widened toward routes, suppliers, and markets, where decisions elsewhere could interrupt trade, employment, and national economic stability at large scale. China fortified the system around factories, expanding ports not only for exports, but for influence, turning shipping capacity itself into strategic leverage across global trade. Foreign investment followed production outward, binding other economies to Chinese demand, creating partnerships that diversified risk while extending influence beyond domestic borders and trade routes. The economy stopped thinking only about output and began focusing on positioning, redundancy, and anticipation, because constant motion allowed no safe pause within global systems. When growth depends on movement, control determines survival, separating sustained momentum from sudden collapse in an interconnected global economic system built on trade routes flows. Constant motion carries a cost, as scaling production and expanding trade push internal pressure upward, quietly reshaping expectations inside factories, cities, and households nationwide today. Wages rise, demands evolve, and workers who once accepted anything now expect progress, security, and dignity, changing the emotional contract underpinning industrial growth nationwide today. Global competition tightens as others copy the model, cheaper and closer to markets, shrinking margins and forcing efficiency improvements just to stand still worldwide now. With easy gains gone, every slowdown feels dangerous, turning policy into a balancing act between debt-fueled stimulus and factory-stalling restraint under constant public scrutiny today. Success creates fragility, not weakness, where systems function only when perfectly managed, and invisible pressures accumulate beneath steady output numbers inside the national economy today. Manufacturing and trade become psychological anchors, where confidence rivals output, demanding constant reinforcement to keep momentum alive within the interconnected economic system nationwide today globally. At this stage, trade stopped being neutral, becoming leverage, as production flowing through one system quietly translated into influence without announcements or confrontation today. China learned access matters more than dominance, securing key suppliers, materials, and essential manufacturing steps that shaped outcomes without needing total control globally. This created quiet power, felt only when alternatives disappeared, forcing companies to redesign strategies and governments to measure risk around Chinese capacity now. Integration reached its logical end, deepening systems until exit became costly, while dependence generated anxiety and resistance beyond tariffs or headlines worldwide today. China answered pressure by reinforcing, diversifying exports, expanding partnerships, and slowly strengthening domestic demand to reduce exposure without breaking momentum inside the system. The goal was optionality, not domination, because in a global system shaped by interdependence, flexibility determines survival when conditions inevitably shift again. While global influence expanded, internal strain accumulated as manufacturing growth unevenly rewarded regions, pushing coastal cities forward while interior areas lagged behind for many people. Wealth gaps widened as asset prices rose faster than wages, delivering progress statistically, while everyday security felt increasingly distant for households across the country today. Economic systems rely on social acceptance. Growth alone fails when people feel excluded from rewards they help create over time despite rising national output figures. The challenge turned psychological as trade surpluses stayed abstract, failing to translate into personal security or shared confidence for workers' families and communities nationwide today. Authorities responded with infrastructure spending, employment programs, and controlled reforms, aiming for calibration that preserved momentum without breaking trust across regions during continued economic expansion. External strength cannot compensate forever for internal dissatisfaction. A system built for speed must feel fair enough to endure as inequality pressures define next constraint. China's manufacturing and trade machine remains powerful, unmatched in scale, coordination, and adaptability, yet power today feels heavier, slower, and more demanding than before. Growth is harder now. Mistakes cost more as margins for error shrink, forcing constant calibration across production, trade relationships, and internal expectations simultaneously. The system must sustain output, manage global tension, and maintain internal confidence together, transforming economic strength into an ongoing test of coordination and restraint. Manufacturing built the engine and trade extended reach, but longevity now depends on control, trust, and adjustment rather than expansion alone across global markets. China is no longer catching up. It is defending position, requiring precision, emotional intelligence at scale, and discipline without stagnation in an unforgiving environment. The engine still runs, but the road narrows ahead, shaping the global economy's balance. Follow this journey, stay curious, and subscribe for what comes next.